Looks like a woman. I'm sure YouTube says for you. All right. So, hi, everybody. We're going to wait, obviously, a couple minutes while everybody kind of comes in here. But I am really excited that April enjoyed Requiem with the Rose King so much that we get to kind of like continue reading through the series because this is one of my all-time favorite manga series, and the way that it takes real history and kind of like puts its own spin on it, but staying pretty true to the events of history while doing that, but like adding all these background things that, obviously in history we're not going to like pay attention to or remember. I'm sorry, that was a book trying to come up while I was talking. But anyways, I just really like Ayakane's take on what's going on right now, and I'm thriving. I thrive. I'm living for it. Hi, super roommate. How are you? But yeah, so if you have to know if you're going to watch this live stream that we are going to spoil everything. And if you want just general thoughts on the series, you're going to have to go to the previous one. Though we dipped into spoilers pretty quick, you still are going to want to check that one out first because we do have that minute at the beginning where it's like, okay, here's what's going on, and then we're going to spoil everything. So, if you have not read this series yet, obviously we're talking about volumes 4 through 6, so obviously we're going to be spoiling what we talked about last time. So, go check out the other live show. I forgot to link anything down below, so I will that after this. And April will be linked down below later if you're watching it back. But anyways, April, tell people about yourself, and then we'll get into the discussion.
Okay, so we've been doing this book club for quite a while. I've got my own BookTube channel, though I'm playing around with going more towards the crafty side of things, just because that's where my interests are right now. But I just love the fact that, Shay, you are willing to like throw these kind of things at me, because while I wouldn't have picked this up on my own, this series does a lot of thought-provoking things and very uncomfortable things.
This is not a comfy series for everybody.
No.
But it's messy, it is murderous, and I am like all over it.
Yeah.
Like royal drama sometimes. So having historical royal drama is really fun. Current drama, I don't like it hits too close to home, so no thanks. But I do love it. Plus, Ayakane's art in this series, is amazing. I mean, look at this cover. We just have to show it off again because it's so pretty. And there's so much symbolism tied into this cover that you don't understand until you read.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Anyway, kind of sum us up here, April. Tell us kind of your thoughts on what's happening in the series. What do you think is going to happen?
Okay, so I did notice that in these 3 volumes, it was a lot of playing around with, are they ever going to figure out who each other are? So Henry VI and Richard III, they're constantly having these meetings where you start to see
interludes and run-ins together.
Yeah, the soft side of things that counterbalances all this like very hard, mentally draining, very visceral content in between, and we end with 2 of them face to face, and are they going to finally figure it out? And I think the whole time when I was reading these 3 volumes, I'm like, how come they are not connecting these 2 pieces together? Because given where we are today in society, we constantly know everything about everybody. We know what they look like. We know how old they are. We know what they ate for breakfast. But something about this time period, a lot of times you didn't even know what your current ruler even looked like, is such a weird concept.
Right? Like, it's just that in our modern age is hard to even fathom unless you like live in the capital, you know? That's just kind of how that stuff goes.
Right. And so you get that meeting, which I like the pull of that storyline. And then I want to say they finally figure it out in the next volume with the way it's clipping, and I don't know how that's gonna tear them apart, both
Right.
mentally.
Having them each call each other by their name because they finally figured out who they are is just such a powerful moment because of everything else going on around them at the time.
Because it's in the middle of this very bloody battle. I mean, we have York finally coming to terms with everything the House of Neville is playing in the background and trying to position themselves as. And there is a moment, there's something interesting going on with everybody who relates to Richard. Because we have Anne, who is in love with him, but doesn't necessarily know a lot of things that are going on, who ends up married to, oh man, I lost his name.
His brother.
Well, to Henry's son.
Right.
Is he an Edward too?
I think he's an Edward.
I want to say he's Edward too, which is the whole naming confusing thing because we've got a whole bunch of Henrys and we've got a whole bunch of Edwards and we have a whole bunch of Richards. And both of them are in love with a version of Richard.
Yes.
And they're finding a kind of kinship in that.
You have Henry, who's in love with Richard in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Sonia. And then you've got Anne, and then you've got Anne's husband. Like, they all have physical attractions to Richard. And it's just such an interesting dynamic for the setting of the story. Because you have people like Nottingham who want Richard on the throne. And you have the House of Neville who just wants power.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't necessarily care who's on the throne as long as he's the one next to them.
Right.
That's all he cares about.
Yeah. Which is why he had his fingers in so many different things. Because, exactly. I mean, at one point he was supporting George as king, and at another point he went back to France and is supporting Henry as king, and then becomes the regent because Henry he can't do the job. He's mentally not there enough for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we reach the end where he's finally slain by Nottingham as Richard, which is a weird sort of symbolism in and of itself because he wants to be the next kingmaker.
Mm-hmm. In his own form of revenge as well, because he has done things to the Nottingham house.
Mm-hmm.
It just becomes this cycle of revenge and take the throne and take the power however you can get it. And it's just addicting to read. That's what I find myself with this series. I'm constantly addicted. I need to know what's going to happen next. And I don't have too many manga series that do that this well. Oh, I teach your name again. Hi again, Sonia. But yes, so when it comes to this series, it is compulsively readable. Every time I pick up a volume, I want more. So early on, I read most of this series over the course of a week. I just kept reading.
I believe it.
After volume because you just have to know what's going to happen next. Now we're current with Japan, and I have to wait 6 freaking months for every volume, and I struggle every time. I'm just no, my precious children, I need to know what's going on with you. I mean, I know you're all going to be dead by the end. I know this because I know history. But seriously, I need to know how you're getting there.
Well, in a weird way, this is kind of a soap opera or a telenovela.
Oh my
Where
gosh, yes.
the most bizarre things are going on between all of these characters that you're like, how
It's
is
like all those
possible?
royal melodramas like the Tudors and things like that. Like this is the era that all that is going on.
Mhm.
So it's just so interesting. Hi Charles. So yeah, I love this series. It's amazing. Did I wish again? What is
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm having struggles over here. For those of you who don't know, I changed my desk setup. So like things are in different spots and I keep touching buttons I shouldn't be touching. So that's my problem here. But yes, when it comes to this series, like I say, I just can't get enough. I will never have enough of this series, but I know with where I'm at, because I'm current on the series, this is just a fun reread for me to go back and re-experience all these things. Like there's only a handful of volumes left with what's going on, and it's just it's so good. And each cover, like I love the covers. Like this one is one of my favorites. Volume 13 is probably my favorite in the series thus far, and I do love the cover of the first volume as well. It's very symbolic. Like I say, each volume is symbolic in its own way. Who's on the cover? It talk basically that character will be prominently featured in some way when they're on a cover, and so it's just always really interesting. And the choices that are made between like rose colors and like adornments and all sorts of other things, like they all mean something. So if you want to like fully understand why the covers in their pretty art are the way they are, you have to read the volumes. But I'm like trying so hard to not like just discuss this at so much length. But basically, these 3 volumes in particular, it's so much back and forth and so much like power dynamic. But one thing in particular, towards the end of volume 5, I was trying to figure out where it was. But there's this moment where Henry and Richard just act so childlike together out in the forest and
Mm.
care of each other, and it's just amazing. Like there's so much about this series, like watching the way Richard and Henry connect together throughout the course of the series is one of my favorite parts of the series. And that's why the cliffhanger on the end of volume 13 has me like dead. But anyway, that's a discussion for Jay. We're talking about 4, 5, and 6 here. And the cliffhanger at the end of 6 is a doozy of one because we have that confrontation. And I could just sit here and ramble for hours about this series, but I feel like I shouldn't.
Well, like I said, there's just so many different like storylines and character
There's
arcs
so much to follow.
that, because I mean, she didn't appear a lot, but we have Elizabeth, Edward's wife,
Mm-hmm.
one of the other queens that opposes
Yes.
Marguerite. Is that her name as queen?
Yes, I believe.
Okay, so the Lancaster queen is Marguerite, and the York queen is Elizabeth, and nobody is thrilled about Elizabeth.
No, but Elizabeth is there for her own selfish reasons too.
Yeah, she's plotting some things. She's setting some things up that you see a little bit happening in these ones. You don't see a lot of it, and I feel
The
like
cover of volume 7 very prominently features Elizabeth.
I was wondering because I was getting a feel that we were being set up for something dramatic to
Let
happen.
me go grab it, but keep sharing your thoughts.
Yeah, because we finally have, she finally has the male heir that she's been hoping for. And so I feel, I feel some very dramatic things about to happen because she's now in a position to get some of her revenge. And I don't think it's going to be pretty. Not that any of this is.
Okay, I'm back. So this is the cover of 7, which is another one of my favorites because it's got like this kind of gold, yellow, filigree kind of background to her. And she's got a knife and she's got her crown on. And that's a lot about what goes down in this volume.
Yep. Because at the end we have Marguerite realizing the battle is happening without her right now.
Yeah.
And she is just a hard character. I have zero like for her as a human being. Like zero.
No one will argue with it with you. Yeah, Elizabeth is, her plotting, scheming self too, and she's hard to love. Like, there is not a queen that we love thus far.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just crazy. Like, the shenanigans and the politics of this series are just what make it so good. It's so politically driven. And it's not like super romance heavy, but there's a lot of coupling and relationships going on. But we're not necessarily dwelling on them as much as we focus on the friendship and the relationship building between Richard and Henry, because that is the one that matters the most in the long run of the series. So it's just so interesting to watch everything going on around these two main characters, and how the decisions of other people affect their own fate. Because that's something that we don't really see a lot in manga, is we see how they affect the people around them. We don't necessarily see so much how the people's decisions around them affect what they do and how they act. Because, Richard was raised as a son for reasons, even though Richard is more gender fluid. And that's such an interesting thing, especially for its time period, to be talking about, because people just assume that they're a demon and that they're cursed, rather than being who they are and who they feel they are. And so it's just such an interesting dynamic all around. There's so much to decompress when you're reading the series. Amazing. Like I say, I could go on forever about this series. I won't. I'll be good.
I will note that I think it was mainly in this last volume where it hit me a little bit more, but you get a little bit more of that Shakespearean vibe.
Mm-hmm.
You get a lot of those Shakespeare lines, and I think it's because of some of the death scenes in this one.
I agree with that. And a lot of the death scenes, I believe, are almost directly from the place that they're in.
Okay. And see, and that's what I was wondering, because it felt like Shakespeare's words.
Because, the manga is very plain about how this is inspired, specifically by Richard III and Henry VI, the plays. And so it's just so interesting. I just love it too much. And I will forever love it too much. And however they choose to end the series will be fine with me. Like, even if everybody's dead at the end, like I'm expecting them to be, I might be a little sad, of course, but I will be fine.
I mean, given what we know of history.
Right. I mean, obviously they will die. They're no longer alive, but just however the mangaka chooses to do that will be interesting. But I'm really excited for the next 3 volumes as well. Like, especially because of what goes down here, and coming off the cliffhanger there, like, it's just so interesting. Like, the end of this volume is insane. It was one of the biggest cliffhangers I had, because volume 8 was out of stock everywhere, and so 7 was my pausing point. And when you get to the end of 7, you will understand my pain.
Okay, so it's good that I don't have to stop at 7, is what I'm hearing.
Correct. You will want to keep going, and good thing you get to. Oh, well, I think that's kind of all I have to say about this. Like, it's just so overwhelming sometimes to talk about it, just because there's so much, and it's really go like page by page with people, and I'm like, that's not what we do with this book club. We just kind of talk about it, and I just will fangirl forever if I keep it out. So, April, I'm going to turn it over to you. April will be hosting next month, as per our usual. We alternate channels, and I will let her talk about the second book in a series that we're going to be reading.
Okay, so we are going to be going to Underworld by Meg Cabot. This is book 2 in her...
It's the Abandoned series.
Thank you. I'm having moments today too. I understand. So we are going to start picking up book 2 because we're going to continue on in this series. So we're gonna get more of our Hades and Persephone's on, and I'm super
We
excited
love
about
Hades
this.
and Persephone vibes.
Yes, because this is another series that ended on a very interesting cliffhanger, and so we get to continue this one. Believe I can't remember what day exactly. The end of June somewhere. I think it's the 20. Is that the 27th? I think it's the 27th.
Yes, the 27th.
So 27th, my channel.
Same time, April's channel. I'll make sure all that info is in the description after we're finished because I'm a klutz and I forgot.
To be fair, you've been pretty busy this week with
my hand.
Yeah.
So
I understand.
I just forgot to put things in there, and it'll only take me a moment to do so. So I'll make sure that gets in there after we're all finished here. So, any last thoughts about Requiem of the Rose King before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I'm just excited to see the next volume, and then the next one, and then the next one.
Yep, I'm very excited too. So we'll be doing those again in July. So we're kind of alternating months so that the people who are here for the books aren't always bored of us doing just a manga series straight through. But we've got our manga friends that are excited that we're doing manga. So we're kind of giving everybody what they want best we can. All right. Thank you guys again. And we'll see you guys next month for talking about Underworld.